So, this is my 1982 Ford EXP. And this is the rocker panel, the outer rocker panel. These cars don't really have much of an inner one. The inner one is more or less woven in with the whole rest of the car. But the outer one is the one that you see on every car. Whether the door is open or closed, that's what you see. You see the rocker panel. And it stretches all the way from the end of this recessed portion, because this right here is what the quarter panel would cover up. So the quarter panel goes over the rocker panel in that spot, so that's why that part is recessed. And then the quarter panel bolts in underneath it. So then this little corner here is also raised up a little bit. So that entire corner is recessed diagonally in, so that the quarter can wrap around it on both sides. So that's part of the quarter. So it starts from over there. You get like 5-6 inches of that recessed portion, and then comes the cosmetic portion that you'll see on every car, and then they all end right about here. You can see that it's curved. They're curved on all cars. The only difference between the cars that I am not too sure of is how this corner is formed. But they're all walled, I'm going to say. They'll all have a curved wall that goes perpendicular with the pleasing surface, what you can cosmetically see. They all should have a wall that goes around that. But on all my EXPs, this corner is brought out, and I believe that is the same on 2-door Escorts. It's the 4-door Escorts that I don't know much about this corner, because on the 2-door cars it has to flare out here so then it can mesh into this fender flare, following the profile my fingers are trying to display, because it's kind of hard to see on camera. In real life, if you look at it, you'll say, oh yeah, there's some curve there. You can tell because what's straight is hiding behind the flare. So if I run my finger through it, you can see what's straight and then flares. So on the 2 doors, this is flared out. On the 4 doors, it gets kind of tricky, because like the wagons, this part of the fender flare is actually part of the rear door. But so I'm not completely sure what would be under that. But as far as the 2-door, 4-door thing goes, the rest of the rocker is identical. What's up front, they all take the same exact quarter panels up front. Everything underneath the door is the same. The only difference is where the B-pillar placement is. So on the 2-door cars, you have it in this rough area, which is a little bit more than a foot away from the end of the rocker. The rockers are the same length across every single Escort, from the 80s that is, because they all share the same exact wheelbase. The rocker panels are exact length. The only difference is, like I said, how they flare that corner, and then where they place these B pillars. So on the 4-door cars, I'll close this here. Just know that that's the door jamb, the arc that comes up for where the B pillar would be. Close that, kind of loud, sorry. But on the 4 doors, the driver doors are shorter. I'll stand back here so we can get the whole car in picture. You can see that the 2-door door ends here. On the 4 doors, the rear door would end here, meaning that your 2 doors would be split right about here-ish, which is pretty close. So meaning that the 2-door door is 6-ish inches longer than the 4-door door, which means that your B pillar, instead of being here, would be about here. And then whatever happens behind the back door, I don't know too much about, because I don't have a 4-door yet. But But I do know that the majority of the rocker is the same except for what I've mentioned, which isn't hopefully not too hard to wrap your head around. But I had found a place a few months ago, and I mean a few months ago. Found it a few months ago, and I contacted them because I was finally ready to place an order after I had asked them a few questions online. Because no one else makes body panels for any of these 80s Escorts and EXPs except Harry Glass. They make fiberglass panels to replace the entire front clip, the doors, and the rear hatch. But that's all they make. There's just fiberglass body parts to replace those, so you can have a professional style drag strip car, something that you would not be taking on the street. Hence fiberglass. But no one else makes any real steel body parts yet. And I say yet because I've always been tempted to make them. I do have ways of replicating the outside door panels. They're not too hard. The rockers aren't too hard. It's the rear quarters and the front quarters that would be utter hell to replicate. But with a lot of time, I could do it. But it would, like I said, a lot of time, a lot of money. Because that is an insane amount of time to fabricate all this by hand. Because I don't have a stamp. I don't even have a way of stamping. That would exceed my cost of spitting out custom ones of these. And same for the front, But down the road. Anyhow, found a place that sells these rocker panels. The place is called C2C Custom Fabrications. Yeah, out of Minnesota. They're like in Minova or Livonia, something like that. Anyhow, I'll have the link to these two products in the description. You're welcome to try them. However, I found out that they're no bueno. When I saw them, I thought, oh, this is too good to be true, especially at the price point. They only wanted $35 per Escort rocker panel. They do only make the 4-door version, which, like I said, is the same as the 2-door ones, with the only exception being the B-pillar placement and how that rear corner is flared out. Easy fixes. But, $35 each. Not a problem. $25 to ship it from Michigan to Wisconsin. Not a problem. But all this was happening during the Corona shutdown, and Michigan has had it worse than us. For whatever reason, they keep having shutdowns and reopens and shutdowns, whatever. So conducting business for them has been rather difficult. I totally understand that. I had emailed them a few questions about this before I ordered it, and they responded the same day to almost all my questions. And then I placed my order, and then I got confirmation that the order went through, but it took 2.5 weeks before I got a tracking number on this, saying that it was dropped off at the location. And I have proof of that. But so during Corona, it took them 2.5 weeks to make this rocker panel and the one for the other side. I only got 2. I thought, well, I don't want to be dumping a whole lot of money into these if they're not right. We'll get into that later. So I only ordered the 2. I thought, well, we'll see how it goes before we order more. So I just got the 2. It took 2.5 weeks for them to be made, because they are handmade. I'll show you why in a minute. And then it took, but once they were all boxed up and sent out, it only took 3 days to get here, of course, because they're only in Michigan. So they came here pretty quick. They weren't packed all that great. They came in a 7.5 foot tall box, and these guys are only like about 5 feet. They weren't packed too great, but for the cost of shipping and the cost of the product, won't complain. You know, especially being that they're only, you know, just over Lake Michigan. They're not that far away. It only spent 3 days in transit, so not too concerned. Anyhow, the actual product that I had received is what I'm having issues with. I'm not mad nor terribly frustrated, but I am rather bummed. These are not what I was hoping for. Their product descriptions has a photo of these, but it's not a very good photo. The photo they include online, and that's why I include the description, just so you can see the photos. And hopefully someday they'll update these so that they are correct. But online, this section isn't missing. They cut this out so it's easier to fit under or around that B pillar. You know, that door jamb section that curves up. That's the only reason why they removed that. So the photo just shows, like, from here down here, that would be patched in, and then it ends here. And so you don't get to see the end here. And if I knew that this was the end, I wouldn't have ordered it. Because, like I said, that little end there is what makes these kind of special. And that's not hard to do, but the way they did it made it hard to add on to. So I'd have to order. Luckily, I do have a steel supplier literally 3 blocks from my house. So I'd have to go over there. I'd have them cut up some stuff for me, but then I'd have to bend it at their place. And then once I get home, I could weld it. Unless I wanted to pay them to weld it, but there's no sense in that. Welding is expensive. But every cut, every bend is, I think, $5 each. And so it adds up fast. You know, just for that little guy. That I could definitely make myself, but it wouldn't be all that pleasant to add on to this. I'd have to do a lot of bending, which is more time and money at the steel shop. It just to add on to this. So I reckon that little chunk on the end there would cost me $30-some just in expenses there, not including my time. I'd like to think my time is worth nothing, but sadly it's not. My time is rather expensive, hence why my videos have slowed down. Anyhow, that's a lot of work just to add this little bit here that is missing. And because they only left this tiny little tab with it, I'd have to, you know, get pretty good with my welds to weld a piece on here. And I have to take this thing over to the steel place so that, you know, to make sure that my corner was all shaped right so that I could weld it without much issue. But I'd say my biggest issue is this center section, and the overall dimensions of this are just wrong. Lengthwise, it's perfect. The length from that top corner down to here, where this ought to dip down for the recessed portion, is the same between the leading edge of the door and the actual end of the quarter panel. These are identical matches in that regard. However, this right here is way too tall. It's at least 1/4 of an inch too tall. You know, and that wouldn't necessarily be an issue, but the way they bend this corner would be. And for me to take this over to my metal shop to have this done in a break, not only would it cost me, again, $5 per bend, but their break might not be able to fix this. I'd have to bend this back, and then I'd maybe be able to fit something in there to bend this right, because this would have to have a curve. Because in reality, I'm sure when you make these quarter panels, these 2 bends are the first ones you do. The absolute first bends you do, because they're on the inside. With brakes, you have to work from the middle of your product to the outside so that you can fit all your bends around the brake, because brakes don't operate with the thickness of my pinky. You know, they all have clamps that are as long as my hand and fingers, so it makes hard fitting things in there to bend it right. So I probably wouldn't even be able to bend this right, which is a big disappointment. Well, this wouldn't look right at all if I put it on my car. I don't even know if it would fit. With its, that's a gargantuan difference, man. But there are other issues. Like this panel here is about 1/2 inch too short, and they could fix that easily just by changing their template. Because this right here is only 1/4 inch too tall. So if you move this bend further this way, that means you'd have a closer length here. And then on the top side, everything measures out fine, but they didn't do any of these bends right. They didn't finish bending them. This surface right here has to be completely perpendicular to this surface here, as seen in my car. You can see it's perfect, perfect 90 degrees angles on everything except the actual sill. This is angled just a tiny bit so that water can flow out it. That wouldn't be a problem if it was closer, but again, I'll have to take this over to the metal shop, and $5 a bend. I'd have 1, 2, 3 bends to do. That's $15 right there. Another small issue is this opening. You can see that they had cut it out. Once they had bent this entire piece, they had come by with some snips and just went, or I'm pretty sure it was like electric shears or something. So they cut that out. And honestly, it would have been nicer if they left that in, but I was prepared for this. I knew because of the positioning of the 2-door car versus the 4-door car, I could cut out just this section here and move this over here, because the last foot is nothing but quarter panel. So this would be moved down, all this would be open, and that's perfectly fine because it's just a quarter panel. I don't need anything intruding on the inside, especially in my convertible, because this is full of reinforcement. So that would have worked out fine. This right here is correct. Well, that's the other end of the door jamb, but it has the same thing as this, just reversed and on the far leading edge. But the last issue is an annoying one. This is one that I was hoping they were doing, or they'd be able to do. That's this corner. Now, this is the corner. It goes right there. It's that nice, pretty rounded one, and they didn't bulge it out, which is fine. I could easily do that. I'd want to do that anyhow. With a few sets of pliers, hammering mallets and hammer dollies, maybe even an anvil, so I can have that shaped just right. And then, of course, everything you possibly do to this needs a thin layer of a glaze putty or body skin coat. Sorry, and then you sand it until it's straight, like my original one kind of was. But they forgot to put the walls around the backside, which is fine. If they cut these by hand, whatever you do for this, you'd have to weld it. In all honesty, you'd have to weld that. But I don't like that all this is open. That ain't right. So it should be closed off some way, somehow. And that would be easy for me to do. But for me to cut out a chunk of metal, put it in here, spend all the time welding it, sanding it, and then flaring this corner out, or flare it out first, and then fill that in with metal, go on, etc., etc. That's just more time and more money over at the steel shop. So by the time I've spent all that time and money converting this into what I need it to be, I could have made my own for a little cheaper, and it wouldn't have taken me much longer. And like I said, because of the way brakes are made, I don't know if I can even fix the pretty part, this guy. I might have to like cut it straight down the middle, so then this one piece becomes two pieces, and then I'd have to cut one again to make it a little shorter, and then I can pinch them together and weld it. But I'd have to get that incredibly straight, and then I'd have to clean up my weld real nice, and then I need even more glazing putty to make it right. And then I'd still have to extend this because it isn't deep enough, and that's a lot of work to fix what's wrong. It would be far easier for me to just recreate what I need. Between that front corner, missing, the rear corner not having the walls built around it, and then of course the two dimensions being off, and the biggest one is the one that's most wrong, disappointingly. Yeah, I got what I paid for, $35 a piece. You'd think, wow, that's a great deal. And it is. But the issue is it won't fit, on any Escort or EXP, because it's just too tall. Your quarter panel will never look nice up against that because your quarter panel doesn't go as far down. And you'll have to bulb that little recessed nook to go on the end of that behind your quarter panel. And that will take a fair bit of time, but it will never match this. And then you have to fill in the remaining missing metal on the end of this. Because that would be all exposed to the elements. At which point I'm sure you would say, "Oh, nuts! I'm in the same pickle as Expert." Yeah. These are all right. They're pretty good for being handmade, but the issue is they're still not right. But that's kind of all I can say about them. I'm still deciding if I'm going to return these or not, because they are almost 6 feet tall. Yeah, they're about 5 feet long. If I were to return them in the 7-foot box they sent me, I'd have to take my excursion or pickup into town, and the nearest FedEx is 30 miles away. So that's a lot of my time. That's an hour of just driving if I don't even stop to drop them off. But then I also have to pay the $25 of shipping, and it might be more because it only costed them $25. Maybe they got a discount. I might not. So to return both of them, we'll just assume it's $25, and then an hour of my time, and then I'll have 10, 15, maybe $20 in diesel because I have to take the truck to take these in. They won't fit in a car unless I use a different box, but then I'll have to buy a box because I don't have any. I can't even make a box that's 5 feet long and 8 by 8 at the ends. And so I'll still be deciding if it's worth it to return these or not. But holding on to them, they don't really do me any good. It's scrap metal for me. I could use these top pieces, but I've never needed any. The bottom of the sill is the last thing to go wrong in any of these cars. Speaking of which, one difference that there is that I forgot to mention is this little recessed square in the door jamb. I'll show you what's there on the other side. But what is there, depending on which car you have, will be a little Ford or Lincoln Mercury sticker. See, I have that little chrome foil sticker that's covered in lasting material. It's pretty cool. None of my other EXPs actually have that there, but they all have that recessed square, but not a single one has that Ford chrome sticker on it, which is cool. So these aftermarket rockers don't have that. I wouldn't necessarily need that, But if it's a make or break for you, that's you know, another thing to consider. You'd have to get something to punch the sill out, or possibly the easier, cheaper method is to cut out a small section of the door sill. Cut that out. Cut out a chunk here, like they did for the B-pillar opening, and weld that in, so you have that. And then you put it where you want it. Maybe for you, it's too far forward, because they make that so that it sits in the center of the 4-door door. And then in the 2-door door, it sits kind of forward. If you wanted it in the middle of the 2-door door, you could have it right here in the center instead of off over here like it is. Well, which might be more pleasing for you. I don't know. I'm not you, and it don't matter much to me. Like this car, I'm going for a slight resto mod. Everything will look perfectly stock and factory. You'd have no idea it was even tinkered with until you get underneath the car. I have to do some suspension modifications. I'm going to try to upgrade the brakes some, and then a few other little things that will add up to a big difference on the road that you'll never be able to see. You won't be able to see any of the differences I'm going to make, which for some people is it would kill them. some people thrive on the elaborate thingies they put on their car for people to see. You know, but I don't need coronations on my car. I just want it to look perfectly original, because there's only 8 of these out there, actually 7 now, and I'm lucky enough to have number 2. But as far as these rockers go, I won't be ordering any more, because like I said, these do me no good. And I know a lot of people will say, hey, they're a really good deal for the price. But they're a great deal for the price. But they still don't work on your car. You know, you could find a great deal on a steering wheel, but if it won't fit on your car, it doesn't fit on your car. It don't do you any good. So that's something you'll want to consider. I'm just providing a word of caution. I haven't checked out any of their other products. They don't sell any Escort products aside from the left and right rocker panels for 4-door. It says right on their website they fit 81 to 94 doors, Escorts. And I've double checked, these are correct, or they're correct for what they said they would ship. These are as advertised. But they're not correct. They're not right. You know, you could buy a Mustang from a CJ Pony. Sorry, you could buy a Mustang seat from CJ Pony Parts, and you get your seat home, and you find out that the entire bottom of the bun is different, so that it won't accept your factory track. Like, yes, it's correct, but it's not right. You know, it doesn't work with your car, so it's not right. So I'm gonna rate them, because if I don't return these, because I might not, that's a lot of money just to get $20-$40 back. Is it worth it? Depending who you are, possibly, but for me, I'd have to go so far into town, do a lot of messing around just to do it. We'll see. But if I do end up holding on to these, I'll write them back saying, hey, I'm not able to return these. And then since I have them, I'll make you proper measurements. If you make this right, I will order more from you, and I'll tell all my friends to. But so far, what they offer right now isn't correct. But if they could make an updated version that is, I'd buy a bunch. I'd buy them by the dozen. You know, even if they are handmade, there's nothing wrong with the quality of these being handmade. And they got pencil marks here and there from where they were going to cut, but didn't realize that it is a 1/4 inch more here or there. You know, being snipped by hand on a issue, if it was pressed, it would have been better because that would have cured that rear corner. But you know, otherwise quality is fine. It's just fitment is no. It's flat out no. But we'll leave it at that.